in those days when you lived in Brooklyn, you were kind of a, you were kind of a pariah. You were kind of excluded, at least, in kind of the, I guess the scene. It was like weird that you lived in Brooklyn. And, we always said that eventually New York City would become more like London, or would become a city on two rivers, London is on two sides of the river. And that's exactly what happened. So I think New York City has, it's just very resilient. When the pandemic happened, obviously the bottom fell out, people freaked out. I think a lot of the kind of, it only takes marginal decreases in tenants. It only takes marginal decreases for New York City to feel it, right? Because it's such a big machine. Obviously Brooklyn has had a big, what's happened in Bushwick was, I was out in Bushwick way long ago. I own a bar out there called 101 Wilson Bar. We actually just opened a bar in Ridgewood, Queens, called Jones Bar, not too long ago. And that's been an amazing success. I mean, people, all those young people who got priced out of Manhattan, they got priced out of Bushwick, which is unheard of when we were, young. They're all in Ridgewood. I mean, it's the latter for sure. Everything is different. I mean, it's funny. Everybody, I mean, we do, again, we function as business partners to our multifamily clients as well as our hospitality clients. Liquor licensing is a small part of what we do, but everybody wants to hear about liquor licenses. It's an exciting topic.
It's interesting.
And it's obscure. It's obscure and it's niche, and there's not a lot of, it's a very niche practice. There's not a lot of people who do it, and it's highly important. It's essential to these businesses, and hospitality is, the hospitality is, I think the sector grew, I don't know the numbers, forgive me, but grew like it outgrew like by 4 times the closest other industry, right? People are just moving in terms of employment, in terms of revenue, in terms of whatever. I would say that they're different, but they're the structure of the laws. I mean, this all came out of Prohibition, the end of Prohibition. So the sort of, they all kind of follow similar. They're all sort of similarly structured, but the difference in New York is that sort of, and this is with all, you can see this with all jurisdictions. It's not the entitlement process, meaning like your certificate in New York, your certificate of occupancy, your letter of number, the DOB process, so to speak. That is not closely linked to the liquor license process, of the administrative process, right? In other jurisdictions, in Texas, for instance, right? It's part of it. You have to get like for instance, a city secretary certification, right? That requires an application for a permit, a certificate of occupancy. I mean, all of those things. In California, for instance, there's a CUP process, conditional use permit process. This goes in tandem, right? And these things are linked, and you have to have that. In New York, it's and part of the Governor Hochul's suite of laws was to have a waiver of certificate of occupancy as well, right? New York City is just so vast, and that the whole DOB process, certificate of occupancies in general, were only introduced in 1920 and 1928. So there's all these buildings that have not had substantial alterations, which don't require certificate of occupancies, at least under the DOB guidelines. So it's a bifurcated process, and that causes a lot of confusion. You really need somebody people will get, they'll get a liquor license expediter, or they'll get and they will go through the process, and they'll end up and they'll say, what do you mean I got to wait for a letter of notice? I don't understand this. I'm not approved. It's very, there's a lot of people quoting them all kinds of incorrect information on use groups and on zoning and on this and on that. So that process is a lot more cohesive and a lot more intertwined and interdependent in the application process for liquors in TABC, for instance, or in California ABC. But there are different complications. So, that to answer your question, yes, it's the same but different. I'll say so. The OCM, which is the Office of Cannabis Management, is going to function similarly to the SLA, right? And it's, New York State uses the same kind of, you can be as granular as like the system they use to process these things, right? If you go to do New York Business Express or the NYC Health Permit, the health portal, or, any of these portals, they're all kind of the same, I'm not a tech guy, but they're the same type of, I'm just giving you an example and giving you context for how similar the systems are. So a lot of the people who practice in liquor licensing or in DOB stuff or any DCA, whatever in New York State, so representing hospitality businesses or alcohol businesses are also incorporating cannabis in their practice, because it's going to be the rules are going to be they're different rules, but they're going to be promulgated in the same way. It's the same process. I would reckon that it's going to be similar individuals in the organizations, right? So, I think, and just seeing the conditional adult use, the card permit, which that's the program that was just rolled out to allow for the whole cannabis system is about equity. I guess that's one place it does differ. It's really equity driven. This card program is for people who have who are justice involved, meaning they've had some kind of marijuana related offense for them or a spouse, something that's affected them. They're really trying to drive equity there. And then the next kind of phase of this is going to be minority and women owned business enterprises. So they're really trying to make it a push for equity. I think administratively and legally, it will be very similar to the other to liquor licensing, and OCM will function. I think. I don't know, but it seems to be like it'll function similarly. Like the licensing side, the compliance side, it'll function in a very similar way. But the difference is it'll be very equity driven. I know that from the liquor license standpoint, it's difficult. When you're talking about going to stakeholders, going to community boards, for instance, I don't know whether they're doing it now, but in the past they ask about what kind of music you're playing, right? What kind of cuisine you have. And if you say, oh, we're playing reggae music or rap music, or we're playing, we're serving, curry or whatever, they get all flawed. Where if it's like a French brasserie, they get all excited. Now, forgive me, but I don't see a lot of equity in that, right? I don't see a lot of